Welcome back to Live with AI Virtual CES 2022, a series of webcasts that features exclusive interviews with industry experts and thought leaders on the topics of ADAS and autonomy. In addition, we also have, as part of this program, virtual demonstrations of AI's CES Innovation Award-winning Foresight LiDAR. Now, Foresight LiDAR is a software-centric solution that actually adapts and optimizes its scan pattern in real time. All of the broadcasts that you have seen the last 2 days have aired live on AI's social media channels, which includes Facebook and Twitter, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube. All the broadcasts that you've seen both yesterday and today will eventually be archived at AutoVision News, but you can follow AI on social media to get notified of the broadcast, or you can catch a broadcast that you have missed or you would like to see again. Again, those AI social media channels are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Our next guest today is Dr. Gunnar Juergens. Now, Gunnar is the Continental head of Product Line LiDAR, ADAS, and autonomous mobility and safety. In this role, Dr. Juergens is responsible for profit and loss, product development, and overall strategy for Continental's LiDAR business around the world. Dr. Juergens has held a number of leadership positions across the organization, including vice president and head of Continental's global LiDAR and head of driving functions in Continental's ADAS business unit, where he launched serial development for automated driving functions and delivered assisted and automated driving functions to customers worldwide. Dr. Juergens began his distinguished career with Continental in 2003 in Germany. Here to talk about the drive towards ADAS and autonomous features in automotive and trucking, the role that LiDAR plays, and ultimately Continental's offering, Dr. Gunnar Juergens. Gunnar, thank you for joining us today on our CES broadcast.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I want to dive right in. I want to pick your brain. Here in Detroit, from my vantage point for a long time, when you said the term autonomous or ADAS, whenever you said that, you always thought cars, autonomous cars and autonomous cars. But now we have a movement towards autonomous trucking. We're seeing that more and more in the news. And trucking has become an ideal proving ground for ADAS and autonomy. So my question, Gunnar, is why has the trucking industry suddenly come to the forefront? And why are we seeing more ADAS and autonomous features in the trucking industry?
Thank you, Carl. That's a good question. And I can tell you, you're not alone. Probably all of us primarily think of cars when we talk about autonomous mobility, autonomous driving. We also see a lot of buzz in the media about it. So yes, the car is always on our mind. Let me answer your question from the point of view of a technology provider.
Please.
So at Continental, you know, we are providing hardware and software system solutions for all kind of types of mobility, right? So we have to make sure that technology is available with the right automotive grade quality at the right time. And then comes the application. So whether it is trucking or private vehicles or even other mobility vehicles, for example, people mover, robo-taxis in the city, whether they come first or the other come first is not so relevant for Conti. Now, I was always having this idea like you that cars probably would come first. And now it turns out that autonomous trucks have a certain special interest. They have developed this interest. Why is this so? My interpretation is that the business case is just so convincing. Mm-hmm. Think about you having lots of goods to transport. You have a long distance ahead of you. Specifically here in the US, you might think you want to drive from west to east coast or vice versa. Yes. You have those long roads, those empty roads often, and you have this long driving hours. So wouldn't it be beautiful to have a technology in those vehicles where you could just let the vehicle operate those long driving hours by itself? You would have so many advantages. One is that, of course, the driver could be relieved, or even the driver would not be needed. And the other is you don't need to have those breaks anymore. You don't need to wait or even sleep you could just continuously do that job, covering all this long distance that you are planning to cover.
Right. Right. So Gunnar, my next question then is, so we know about autonomous cars, but there's a considerable size difference between a traditional sedan or a robo-taxi and an 18-wheeler. 18-wheelers are bigger, they're heavier. So what are the challenges when it comes to designing a safe and effective LiDAR for really two different types of vehicles? What is your perspective on that?
On the functional side, the primary difference is the mounting location, the packaging inside of the vehicle exterior. And then, of course, it's the driving conditions. So thinking about a truck, you would think that the sensor is mounted a little higher. And there's certainly driving conditions where the vehicle shows vibration, or it shows different behavior on the road. For example, when braking, the car would do this kind of a bending maneuver stronger than a passenger vehicle. So this is what you need to cope with. But I would say that's more of a calibration and a robustness development. And the other part is the safety part. And this is mainly a question of how you configure your sensor system.
Right.
So while the individual LiDAR sensor might be similar, maybe you would want to have more sensors on a bigger vehicle to cover blind spots, to cover different scenarios where you need an additional level of safety.
Right. And along with safety, the next benefits, Gunnar, is fuel efficiency. So we had a guest yesterday during the broadcast, Art Blanchford, a former executive at Veoneer. He talked about the idea of fuel efficiency and the idea of platooning. And so I want to get your perspective on this, Continental's perspective on this. We know that your LiDAR makes heavy trucks safer, but does it also make them more fuel efficient as well? Is that possible?
In general, fuel efficiency is a major challenge, and we all want to reduce the carbon footprint. And in transportation, certainly, this is a very big issue. So best would be to avoid traffic and transportation altogether, right? But if you talk about the contribution of a technology such as LiDAR, I would refer to the situation that we've all lived through when we were taking driving classes. At least the driving teacher said to me, you should learn to look ahead and to look far beyond your near range in order to be a good driver.
Yes.
And this is exactly what the LiDAR can contribute. The LiDAR sees more, and it sees it earlier and far beyond what a human eye would see. And this can enable the car, the vehicle, the truck to react to things earlier and thereby stabilize the driving. You would avoid braking maneuvers. You would avoid stopping, for example, and all of this would contribute to a lower fuel consumption.
Of course. Gunnar, I want to shift directions just a little bit because you have that banner behind you that says high resolution 3D flash LiDAR. So let's talk about Continental solutions for the market. Tell us about your LiDAR in particular. If around AI here, we talk a lot about the HRL 131. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Continental's other product offerings. So what kind of solutions do you bring to the market?
Yeah, thank you, Carl. What many people maybe don't know is that Conti has been involved in providing LiDAR solutions to the market already since about 20 years.
Okay.
And we have delivered about 20 million LiDAR sensors to the automotive market already, starting with simple so-called short-range LiDAR solutions many years back. And then the latest achievement is that we have just gone into serial production with the so-called high-resolution flash LiDAR that you see advertised here behind me. Right. This is the short-range LiDAR that has no moving parts and is contributing to highly automated driving on the highway.
Right.
So this is where we stand today. And now looking ahead, what we think the next big thing is to enable highly autonomous driving at high speed on the highway. And this is where we think we need a long-range, high-performance LiDAR. And this is where we found AI as the ideal partner for collaboration in this development. And this is coming up. We are very proud that we are already on a B sample stage here. It's a lot more that we can show in the next weeks to come. And we are targeting a start of production for this new long-range LiDAR in the year 2024.
Of course. Now, Gunnar, with CES being a technology-focused show, and with this obviously being a technology-focused broadcast, I want to go back to something you said. You mentioned no moving parts. So let's talk about that. What are the advantages of having no moving parts when it comes to a LiDAR system?
Yeah, we come from automotive, and we have painfully learned that robustness in automotive is one of the major priorities in the development.
Sure.
We provide cameras, we provide radars, and we provide LiDARs to the automotive market. And when we design this, we always look for this robustness. And this means that you don't want to have moving parts in that sensor. Now, looking at long-range technology, a state-of-the-art technology is using moving parts in that element where you distribute the light beam and you kind of sweep through the whole picture. It's called a scanning device. Right. And what we find very, very important and a huge advantage in the concept that we're developing together with the AI is that this scanning device is so small that it's nearly like a non-moving part. It's nearly solid state. And I give you one example. There are mirrors involved that reflect the beam in this sweeping maneuvers. And those mirrors are so small that you can barely see them with your human eye. They are sub 1 millimeter in size. And if you make them move, it's nearly like having no moving parts at all. Right. This will create automotive quality. This will create automotive robustness.
Right. Now, Gunnar, as I understand it from my vantage point, having the small form factor is also important for OEMs and automakers as well. What are your thoughts on that? Why would it be important to have that small form factor for OEMs?
Yeah, OEMs always look at high functionality, but then they look at design as well. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to design a car around the sensor. It's rather the opposite. You want to have the sensor fitting into the design of your car.
Yes.
So the smaller you can make it, the more flexible you are with regards to mounting positions and form factor, the better it is for the OEM.
Right. Gunnar, I wanted to get your perspective here before we close this interview. Why has Continental chosen to work with AI as a LiDAR partner? And I want to reference one interview we had yesterday. So we started this webcast series with Steve Lambright, the Chief Marketing Officer of AI. And we talked a little bit about the partnership with Continental, that it's absolutely pivotal for AI to have that partnership. So that was Steve's perspective. From your perspective, again, why have you chosen AI as a LiDAR partner?
Let me give you 3 reasons. First of all, we really looked at what is the best high-performance long-range LiDAR technology available in the market. And this is where we found AI as the best technology provider. Second is the speed to market. Mm-hmm. The technology is evolving quickly, and speed to market is a key in order to make this a volume application. And if you do everything yourself, maybe you succeed eventually, but you will not be fast. So doing this together makes us much faster. And let me give you one last reason, and this is a pure marketing reason. We are focusing on the automotive market, as this is our DNA, but AI will focus in parallel to non-automotive markets, such as, I think you also had broadcasts on ITS market.
Yes.
This is the synergy. So we can work with the same product, but we can engage in marketing activities in parallel channels, and this will help both of us.
Gunnar, I really would look forward to, in a year from now, so next year during CES, doing this interview to see how everything has grown and evolved. And you're right, ITS has been a big topic of discussion on these broadcasts over the last 2 days, as well as rail and logistics, obviously trucking, which you shed some light on. So I will be interested in the very near future to get caught up with you. Hopefully we can do this in person and we can enjoy a cup of coffee and talk about more advancements on as far as Continental goes. So we want to thank you for your time, Gunnar. Thank you for joining us today on this broadcast.
Thank you, Carl. LiDAR is a beautiful technology. Looking forward to share more news and to see it on the road soon. Thank you, Carl.
Indeed, my pleasure. Our next live stream begins shortly at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Now, we're going to be talking with Phil Magny, who is the founder and principal advisor at VSI Labs in the Twin Cities. When it comes to validating sensors like LiDAR, Phil Magny is an industry expert, so we're going to get his perspective on corner cases and the best approaches to testing and validation. We'll also talk with Phil about VSI Labs, the automated drive series that they're doing now and have continued to do over the last couple of years. So you can catch everything on AI social media platforms, which includes Facebook, Twitter, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube. You can find us there, get notified of future broadcasts, or you can watch again anything that you may have missed or that you enjoyed. Thank you again for joining us. This is Live with AI Virtual CES 2022.